Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be here with you today. Today is election day in the United States. You're running for office, and so is Trump. So you all get out there, vote or die.
Vote or die? What the hell does that even mean?
What you think it means, bitch.
Because this last 4 years has begun to feel like that scene from Oliver Twist. Where in my mind, I wish the ad that the Trump campaign had played is the one I'm putting on screen here, which is just Kamala laughing in the background. And it says, remember when your family could afford food? Because we have seen, like, the Democrats will be like, oh, the economy is great under Biden and Kamala. And Kamala has said that she's not going to change much. So I wanted to go through the real inflation numbers, the real price of things under the two administrations, and not because there have been some inflation numbers that Republicans have sent around that are really massaged to look good for Trump, which I think undersell things, because then you're looking at them, they're massaged, so this is as good as they could honestly make them look for Trump. So I'm going to start this by going over Fact Checker with an article titled Viral Posts Cite Misleading Economic Data to Compare Biden and Trump Presidencies. So this is supposed to be taking down those ones that make Trump look really good.
Right.
And we'll go into the numbers that they give for Biden in the various areas, because I think through seeing the most rosy possible numbers that somebody could give Biden, you would be horrified for another 4 years of this.
Okay.
More so than you probably think. All right. We identified the national average price of regular gasoline at the pump, $2.48 under Trump. And overall, the national gas price increased by 2.3% over the course of Trump's presidency. So under Trump for gas, $2.48 average, 2.3% increase.
Right off the bat, this is insane to me, because I'm hearing that and I'm like, no, gas in the US was never that inexpensive. That's impossible.
Hold on. And keep in mind, they're massaging the numbers for Biden here. The average price of gasoline under Biden was $3.50, and under Biden's presidency, they increased 46.2%.
Well, yeah, and we've been paying $4 at the pump, like, recently.
Well, I know they increased 46.2%, and the average was $3.50.
Yeah.
So at the end of the cycle, it's going to be higher, obviously.
Yes.
The highest recorded price under the Biden administration was at $5.01.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So they went from $2.48 under Trump to $5 under Biden. And under Trump, they increased 2.3%. Under Biden, they increased 46.2%. And keep in mind, that was a full 4 years of a Trump's presidency, and this is like 3.5 years of a Biden presidency.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's look at home ownership. All right.
Okay.
So if you look at Zillow's rent index for changes in single family homes, they identified the average home rent price under the Trump administration as $1,488, as compared with $1,884 under Biden. According to Zillow's index, home rent prices for single bedroom houses increased 50% under Trump administration and 30% under the Biden administration. Like, how do people afford this when it's increasing that much? Hold on. It's all going to get worse when we go to pay increases under the two administrations.
Oh, right.
Because here, I think a lot of people have in the back of their head, well, yeah, but pay probably increased more.
What
under Biden.
Pay increases, though? Oh, my gosh.
Okay. Now let's look at a different way of looking at this. The BLS also tracked rent prices increased by 13.6% over the entire Trump administration and by 21.5% over the first 3 years of the Biden administration. So again, almost double there. Now let's look at the NASDAQ, the stock market. Aggregated on a daily basis, the NASDAQ increased about 0.14% per day under Trump and 0.04% under Biden. So terrible under Biden. Okay, let's keep going here. To measure grocery prices, under Trump, grocery increased in price by 6.5%, under Biden by 20.9%.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I feel a lot less gaslit based on these numbers, because I'm hearing a lot of discussion now, especially leading up to the election, that prices aren't that different. But I keep thinking, no,
They're just lying to people. It's so bad.
Cost so much
Yeah.
more.
Democrats act like this is the 90s, and they're working under the old rules. The new rules are these: attack, lie, don't get caught. Machiavelli wrote The Prince for the rulers. Well, we're rewriting it for us.
But yeah, they're just lying.
That is insane. But also, I didn't realize just how bad it was, because I know things cost more, but I think I'd forgotten at this point. I've even successfully been gaslit to the extent where when you said that gas prices were on average about $2.50 in the US under Trump, I was like, I couldn't believe it. Grocery prices too. But now I feel like less of an idiot, because every time you and I go to a restaurant, for example, or to a grocery store, I think,
Yeah.
I can't afford this, or this used to be the price of a Michelin star restaurant in the heart of Manhattan.
And
But
you know
we
the
are
same
out in
thing
the
with
boonies
Michelin
in
star restaurants
Pennsylvania at like a wing bucket. You know what I mean? Like this
Yeah.
is not.
Yeah. No, seriously, they'll be like, oh, this is like $25 for an entree at like a medium restaurant. And it's like, this was literally what Michelin star restaurants used to charge.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah, a
say,
$25 entree was, I think I remember seeing those prices at restaurants like La Grenouille, which was one of the most expensive, fancy restaurants in all of New York City that we've ever eaten. That was like such a thing. You dress up to go is a big
yeah.
deal. And what makes me so concerned about this too is, while you and I basically since the pandemic have stopped eating out, period, unless it's for a business dinner that we have to go to and we have to meet at a restaurant, because otherwise we just have people come to our house and we inflict our food upon them. We don't see that same change in the average American. The average American is still eating out with their family on
Mhm.
a semi-regular basis, if not on a very regular basis. When I hear quote unquote normal people talking about their lives, they're door dashing, they're Uber Eatsing, so they're getting delivered restaurant food. So not only restaurant food, but restaurant food that they're paying delivery fees for.
Well, and it shows you how entitled people are. There was a campaign a while ago where after the pandemic, people were saying that DoorDash should be like a human right. This was progressives saying that the government should pay for our DoorDash because they didn't like to, like, that they could get triggered if they go out in public, or they could,
Yeah. A few weeks back, this retard showed up with this take, comparing food delivery to vaccines and medicines, as in her view, they are all the fruits of progress that should be considered essential, despite not existing in previous eras, because times and standards have changed. If you're against them being made into a human right, you're ableist. The discourse culminated with this furry claiming that he orders DoorDash because his polycule is food insecure and too disabled to cook for themselves, even though DoorDash is really expensive, and food insecurity refers to people who are so poor they can't consistently afford food. So this is all. Guy replies, some types of food are basic staples, see rice, pasta, veg, fruit, etc. Some types of food are more luxury items. Both can exist. No one has an automatic human right to be able to shop at Waitrose. It's a basic human right to afford all food. You can't pick and choose what people deserve. The fuck is wrong? Oh my god. Listen,
People forget just how luxurious our lives are, that you could not get food delivered to you. There were certainly local pizza stores that might do delivery rounds in a limited area, or sometimes Chinese food did delivery, but that was offered on a restaurant by restaurant basis by restaurant staff. This was not a pervasive service available to everyone. It certainly wasn't affordable or cheap by any means. Nowadays, you can like literally get a TV DoorDash to you. You can have someone buy large electronic devices, which, by the way, those are the things that have gotten less expensive. And I'm assuming that this is why a lot of people are able to massage the numbers and say, listen, overall, on the whole, prices aren't higher. And that's because many big ticket objects, appliances, TVs that used to be $2,000, $3,000, $1,000 and a half, now are $300. They're so much less expensive. The thing is, I'm not buying a TV every week. I'm buying groceries every week. I'm buying gas every week.
Well, let's go over the specifics here. So if you look at since Biden was elected president, bacon prices are 13% higher. Cereal and baked goods are 25.6% higher.
Cereal's such a scam. When you think about what you pay per calorie for cereal, it is a complete scam, by the way. I can't afford it. There's no one can afford cereal. That's insane.
Yeah, cereal's a scam.
Ever since college, I quit cereal when I realized how much it actually cost per calorie. It's ridiculous.
Does anyone else think that it's upsetting that food is currently considered a luxury item? That we're being told to just eat cereal and frozen dinners? I'm feeling a type of way about it.
So non-alcoholic beverages increased 21.4%. Meat, poultry, fish, and eggs collectively increased 20.2%. And let's look at electricity prices here. So under the Trump administration, electricity increased 4% in price. Under the Biden administration, it increased 28.3% in price.
Oh, and we're seeing scary things like in some states, people being obligated essentially to pay for other people's electricity. I need to look up.
This was in Connecticut, where now you are obligated to pay for anyone who makes under a certain price as electricity, and their electricity cost is just averaged out throughout everyone who's like middle class or above.
Yeah. So in other words, people of greater means are expected to subsidize the electricity for those of less means, but that means that
just pay for it. And so their prices have jumped like a third in some areas.
Yeah, they get price surges, and then what they used to expect and budget for in their electricity bills are now, it's just completely out of whack.
And I also think if people are like, oh, this is going to end soon, Kamala isn't as bad as Biden. Excuse me, Kamala's the one who wanted to do price fixing on grocery store foods. You think that this isn't going to spiral further out of control? She isn't just going to continue what Biden is doing. She wants to make it worse. Like, you get that, right? Like, you're not stupid, right? Like, can you actually afford this? Like, meaningfully, can you?
He's putting himself alone. What next is the question?
But let's keep going here.
I think though the mindset is, and we touched on this in our last episode discussing single women for Kamala, is that where the Democrat Party is moving is toward a socialist state where the government provides all of your services. This also came out in recent job numbers, where the vast majority of recent job growth has been in government jobs and also government associated jobs. So a lot of the other job growth, it was not in explicitly government jobs, was I think in healthcare, which is largely subsidized by things like Medicare and Medicaid in the US, which is our socialized version of
So we haven't had real job growth under Biden. It's just been an expansion.
It's been an expansion of government jobs and services. So in other words, the government is becoming the thing that employs us, the thing that provides us our services. And there's this expectation that, okay, well, yeah, we can't afford anything, but the government is just going to provide that to us. And that is why inflation is okay. I think there's also this sort of collective declaration of bankruptcy among Americans who are continuing to eat out on a regular basis, are continuing to DoorDash, are continuing to buy electronics and put it on debt and finance it with the assumption that they're never going to pay it off, but that for some reason they're still able to do it. So why would they stop doing it? Right?
So here's the difference in wages during this period, by the way.
Mhm.
Important to note when you're considering all this growth. You're like, well, maybe it's because of like price inflation of labor. It's like a lot of people say, well, labor costs more than it used to.
Yeah.
In the Biden administration, earnings increased by 1.9%. Under the Trump administration, earnings increased by 6.8%.
Wow.
So like 4 times as much, I think, at least. Like, that's absolutely wild. 400% more than they did under Biden.
Yeah, well, I think here's the dynamic I think is at play here. During the pandemic, a lot of organizations realized that they didn't need to employ as many people as they needed to employ.
Yeah.
And a lot of organizations are now trying to offload employees very heavily. And one of the easiest ways to do so without having to pay severance packages or deal with legal issues, especially among really large companies that are subject to these risks, is to just become increasingly hostile and unattractive to the employees. So this is the equivalent of wanting to break up with your girlfriend, but not being direct with her and instead just being an asshole to her for a long time. So that's why we're not getting raises. That's why people are expected to return to the office, because this is a really great way to clean out your ranks and reduce your staff size without announcing layoffs, without firing people. And so I think that that's one reason why wages are stagnant. It's not necessarily that there isn't a pressure in terms of raising wages. And I actually think that a lot of new jobs and hard to fill positions for skills that are rare now are paying tons more. But that most roles are kind of redundant now in the age of AI. Most companies need to get rid of them. And the reason why those wages are stagnant is because the companies are quiet quitting on the employees. The
Yeah, I agree
companies
with that.
are trying to get rid of them. And we should be considering ourselves lucky that these jobs even exist. I mean, we're lucky to have stagnant wages at this point, and that we live in a legal environment that is annoyingly persnickety when it comes to
So
firing people.
I think a lot of people might be hearing all this and they might be thinking, well, I mean, how does this compare to previous presidents? You know, maybe these are just outliers or this is normal fluctuation between presidents. So here I'm going to put a chart on screen that compares Biden to Trump to Obama to Bush to Clinton to first Bush to Reagan to Carter. So we're getting a big thing here. And what you're going to find is consistently Trump is one of the best and Biden is one of the worst.
Wow.
In fact, the only one who seems even to really tie Biden for worst is Carter. So if we look at overall inflation, Biden is the single worst except for Carter. If we look at food inflation, Biden is the single worst except for Carter. If we look at energy inflation, Biden is the worst, even worse than Carter. If we look at rent inflation, Biden narrowly loses to Carter, but worse than literally every other president, i.e., Trump, Obama, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Reagan. All right, now let's go to Trump. How does Trump compare? Overall, he's the single lowest of every one of the presidents I just mentioned in terms of inflation. Single lowest.
So
For
they used to
food,
call it, they used to call the US dollar during Jimmy Carter's reign, the Jimmy Carter peso. I guess we should call it the Biden shitcoin. That's what the US
the
dollar
Biden
is.
shitcoin?
The
No, but
Biden
he's
shitcoin.
literally worse than the Jimmy Carter peso. Like,
Yeah.
that is wild to me. So for food, Obama was less than Trump, but Trump was the second lowest inflation. For energy, Clinton was less than Trump, but Trump was the second lowest. For rent, Obama, Clinton, Obama and Clinton were both better than Trump, but Trump was the third lowest. But overall, Trump did best because, like, for example, Obama had terrible energy inflation, 29.9%. Not as bad as Biden, 37.2%, but still bad. So I think that people can see here that this isn't like comparing like to like or like two bad options, as people often put it.
What did you say?
Did you just say that voting is ridiculous?
No, I think voting is great, but if I have to choose between a douche and a turd, I just don't see the point.
You don't see the point. Oh, you young people just make me sick.
It's comparing a genuinely exceptional option to a genuinely terrible option.
Well,
Now,
here's where things may get controversial. You may actually want to cut this whole part out, but we'll see. Because I think this inflationary period, but also the way that Americans spend money, has come to a tipping point where I think we just need to fundamentally, as a nation, rethink how we spend money and get sober, essentially. We need to get sober. We need to stop consuming like we're consuming. We need to tighten our belts. Now, one of our local friends had texted me recently. He's like, what's all this about a Trump tax? What's going on? And this is related to the way that Democrats are framing the tariffs that Trump proposes, which are mostly on China, but also on all imports, which would, to be fair, if enacted, raise prices on many foreign produced goods, especially those like electronics that are now incredibly cheap.
Keep in mind, Trump put in tariffs in his first administration and achieved tremendous wage growth.
Yeah, it did achieve wage growth. And I think it's really important. If you look at Peter Zeihan's The End of the World is Just the Beginning, it's important that we start investing now more in domestic production and definitely quitting China. I think the faster we quit China, not only because China is hostile towards us, not only because China is actively trying to ruin us with bad TikTok algorithms and other things, but also because China is about to undergo immense instability due to demographic collapse. Like, we should not be, even if we loved China, it's kind of like, loving a friend who's about to, go through a terrible divorce and go bankrupt. Like, don't depend on them for anything. That's not a safe bet. So I'm very much in favor of that. But I do think that it could increase some prices. And I think that a responsible voter has to be aware that voting for Trump just doesn't mean everything's suddenly going to get less expensive, because it's not. But I think that when we look at the other side and you look at what Democrats are proposing to do instead.
In Trump's first administration,
Mhm.
okay, where all those tariffs were enacted, he
Mhm.
had the lowest inflation rate of any president since Carter, and likely before that. So everyone who's like, prices are going to go up when he implements all these tariffs, well, he did it the first time and they didn't.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to be terribly bad. It can cause some prices to increase. And I want to be realistic about that. And I don't think that there's any way going forward where our lives aren't more expensive and where we as Americans collectively have to rethink our spending. But I also think that if we instead if we dig in deeper to the Democrat approach, which is more government jobs and more government dependency, we are going to end up in a food line situation. We are going to end up in a
When
people
politicians
know
are talking about
how
fixing
independent.
grocery store prices, they're preparing us for a food line.
Yeah. And
But
that
I would note here that here's another great, I've done videos where I complain about how much it costs to build infrastructure in the United States. So here's a graph right here of manufacturing construction between Biden and Trump. And under the
Ooh.
Trump administration, you can see it's just a perfectly flat line. And under the Biden administration, right on up. Now we're going to talk about, I'll put a graph on screen of inflation under Trump and Biden, and people can be like, oh, Biden's kind of getting it back under control. Oh, yeah, right before he needs to run for his second election, he kind of starts to get it back under control. But let's look at how ridiculous the things, and when we say back under control, keep in mind that a graph like this, what you're looking at is incremental increase every year. It's not like he's reversed it because the line is going down now.
No. I'm listening passively to media. If I didn't have additional context in the world from you and from other sources, I'd be like, wait, I'm hearing broadly that inflation is down to 3%. Everything's fine. But that doesn't, it's worded in a way of it's all undone. Everything's fine now. But one, that doesn't change the fact that now we have permanently higher prices.
Yeah.
And
lower wages.
Yeah, that's so it's very annoying to me that there's this argument being made, but then again, there is this everyone in our nation, pretty much at least on average, who is voting Democrat is firmly under the impression that the economy has done great under Biden. I mean, the funny thing is with the Green New Deal, aka the Inflation Reduction Act, which was this giant spending bill that led to a lot of investment in green energy infrastructure. A lot of that did end up going to Republicans who were like very happily like making a ton of money from the I guess subsidies that they got or tax breaks or something that they got from this program, while at the same time shitting on the government for wasting all their money. But I mean, at least someone's making money from this.
So I note here, everything I've gone over so far was from that fact-checking article, or most of what I went over so far.
Okay, yeah. So from a hostile source, from a
to
Republican
Trump,
perspective.
and that's
yes.
how good it made Trump look, okay?
Uh-huh.
So keep that in mind. Now we're going to go into just how much they attempt to manipulate data here.
Okay.
So Biden said, quote, "But no presidents had the run we've had in creating jobs and bringing down inflation. It was 9% when I came into office, 9%. But here's the problem, Simone. It wasn't close to that. It was actually, when Biden came into office, 1.4%. That was January 2021. And in fact, if we even go like months back, we can be like, well, maybe he got the months wrong or something like that.
Okay.
October 20th, it was 1.2%. November 20th, it was 1.3%. December 20th, it was 1.5%. January 21st, it was 1.4%.
Then when did it hit 9%?
It didn't. He just lied. It hit 9% in his administration. It hit 9% in June 2022. Its highest level in about 40 years.
Wow.
And from here, the annual reach trended down for a year, reaching 3% in June 2023, but it has since remained above 3 and with 3.5% for the 12 months ending in March, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so I'll put a graph on screen here.
Mhm.
So no, It did not. He just lied. And if we take a look at it, this was 18 months later when it hit the 9.1%. 18 months into his administration.
Okay. He may have had
So,
something to do with that. That may not have been
especially when
Trump's
you consider
method.
that under the last 4 months of the Trump administration, it was around 1.2 to 1.4%. Like
In the
the
midst of the pandemic, too.
yeah. And then you could say, okay. Well, what about other numbers here? All right. So now let's look at interest rates. The mortgage rates were 2.9% when Trump left office. The mortgage interest rate right now is roughly 7%. So more than twice as high. That means that so the higher interest rates and the inflation in rents and housing prices mean that the mortgage payment on a median value home now is twice as high under Biden as it was under Trump. How about interest rates on federal borrowing? During Trump's last year in office, the 10-year Treasury bill was 0.9%. After 3.5 years of Biden, interest rates are at 4.3%. So 4x higher, more than 4x higher. And when we take the 2 COVID years, 2020 and 2021, out of Trump spending, because I think that's pretty fair, we find the average deficits under Trump were roughly 750 billion, which is bad. But under Biden, it was 1.5 trillion per year. Even adjusting for Biden inflation, deficits have been at least 50% higher under Biden than Trump.
Good Lord.
So when you hear all of that in context, if you haven't gone out to vote yet today and you're like, can you afford not to? Can you afford? And I guess this is the video where I don't know if it's been up in the air whether or not we're endorsing Trump. Everyone's doing an endorsement the thing these days, like the one that's
Not the newspapers.
Do we need to do a real endorsement where we say, I'll get my
Endorsement sword?
I'll take it to the polls. You gotta do the go to the polls. Kabla!
And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance to come back here and tell our enemies they'll never take our freedom?
Kabla!
Freedom! No, he doesn't say that at a very opportune time, though. Yeah.
That's always been my family's battle cry since we saw Braveheart is the kabla.
Good Lord.
Kabla.
Boy.
Anyway, I love you to death, Simone. Do you have final thoughts on this?
I don't know what to think anymore. I feel like I've been lied to so much and told that everything's okay when everything's not okay. And it's not just the US government or operatives saying, no, there's no inflation. It's fine. 3%. What are you complaining about? No, things aren't more expensive. Can't you look at this report? But also, no, there's no demographic collapse. Everything's going to be fine. I just feel like all these lies are going to come to a
graph on the
head.
screen from the UN that shows the real rates of demographic collapse in all these countries, and then the UN's predicted demography for these countries going forwards every year.
Scary is coming into the pandemic. We came to this period of, oh, this little virus looks kind of bad. We might need to shut things down for just a little bit. And everyone's like, it's going to blow over. It's going to be fine.
I told you going into the pandemic, I was like, just biologically, there's no way that this blows over.
You called it. And that's the thing is you are the harbinger of dooms and apocalypses. And that's why I'm concerned. What's scary is with the pandemic, there was no agenda to like, I know that this is happening and it's bad, but I'm going to lie to people about it, like very, very intentionally. I mean, there's a little bit of lying, I think, about masks, maybe because they wanted to keep masks for medical professionals at first.
The other way, but yeah, I get what you mean.
But what's different about now is there is an active interest, sort of, and it's very related, in terms of the operatives who want there to be an increasingly socialized state to the operatives who don't want us to believe that demographic collapse is real. There is a very powerful and very motivated contingent that wants us to just not see this coming so that they can get the outcome they desire. And the problem is that
global economic
they have the ability to execute the outcome they desire with success. So they are very effective in brokering in this transition towards socialism and toward degrowth that they want. But they don't realize how bad degrowth really is, because they're in this myopic utopian modern bubble of the world now. They don't realize what it's like when you don't have enough food.
They've
They don't
lived with the
realize what
fruits
it's
of
like
capitalism
when
so long.
infrastructure is not
Yeah.
kept up. They don't know what they're signing up for. And that's what scares me, is they're going to get their way one way or another, Malcolm. And we have to figure out how to survive in small contingencies despite that fact at this point.
Well, I think that you're absolutely right. They will get their way. So you can look at something like the UN right now, and a lot of people are like, oh, they couldn't possibly be manipulating the data this much, or like here they couldn't possibly, like, their goal is a global economic collapse, and the intention behind the goal is that they can shift the world to a system where they and the other oligarchs, like the intelligentsia, deep state, whatever you want to call it, essentially runs everything through a communist or socialist system. And I note here, when people hear communist or socialist, if they're dumb, they think that that means sharing all the resources equally, when what it actually means, and what like the people working at the UN think it means, is a system where they control every aspect of your life. It's the same with like the people on the Kamala Harris team and stuff like that. And we've seen her repeatedly, what I think communists would think of as like on the ground communists think of as like fascist instincts. They think that they're going to be running things, or less power would go to the oligarchs of our society. Absolutely not. What we are seeing here is a transition to remove power from the everyday citizen and consolidate all the power in our society with the oligarchs.
And to be fair, because I think when people hear you say things like that, they think you're making a straw man argument, because it sounds like it sounds exaggerated, but these people are doing it from a place of, they genuinely believe this is what's best for humanity. And this comes from a place of them knowing from their perspective that they know better, and that the common average person simply can't manage these things on their own, and they need to be directed to live a certain way, and they need to receive services a certain way, because they can't handle it. They're too dumb and too stupid and too ignorant, and I will just make sure that they live their lives this way, and I'll give them their services this way, and I'll take away their pain this way, and I'll medicate them this way, and it will be fine. And they're doing this from a place of love and empathy. They've been taken over by the urban monoculture, the woke mind virus, whatever you want to talk about it, or however you want to describe it, where they are completely mimetically overtaken by a viral strain that says we must take away all in the moment suffering. So these people they believe they're saving the world. They're very motivated to save the world. They think they're doing the right thing, and they're brokering this in very well. This is not us making up some fake supervillain, and this isn't. We look like supervillains to them. These aren't people who think they're doing a bad thing.
Like I mean, they've been completely brainwashed.
There's but there's no Dr. Evil cackling behind, inside a volcano.
No, and I think
these
that
are
this is the
people
thing,
running the UN. These are people who are trying, they're like, we have to save the starving children. They care, and they think they're saving the world. And there are people that we know and love who've fallen into this.
Well, Simone, I think that what's happening at the individual level here, and I think that this is really important for people to note, is I think individuals can be like, they don't actually want the global economy to collapse, to bring in the new world order or socialism or whatever you want to call it.
Because they think the global economy causes harm and doesn't take care of people.
Yeah, they on an individual level, they see capitalism as creating things like homelessness.
Yeah.
And they see like starvation, all the
and failing people.
Society,
and they're like, well, capitalism has failed to save these people on the street. Capitalism caused these people to be addicted to opioids.
Yeah. And when they are thinking about, okay, what does society look like after this, right? They are thinking about it in terms of a modern political fight, like Trump winning versus Harris winning, not because they've been living in a capitalist system. They've been living with the luxury provided by capitalism. And because of that, they are completely unaware of how catastrophic changes in economic systems are for people on the ground.
Well, they don't know the counterfactual, because
it's kind of bad.
the vast majority of these people did not grow up in anything but a hyper-capitalist system or in a very wealthy socialist country like the Nordic countries where just tons of oil revenue basically subsidized everyone's life. And we don't have that in the entire world to depend on.
And I think that one of the reasons why we might be more sensitive to this is because we have a lot of Latin American friends and we've lived a lot in Latin America. And I think if you have, you're not going to be jumping at the idea to try to switch to a socialist model or a communist model because you know just how bad it is. Like I was saying, it's stepping over your friends' bodies on the way to the grocery store type bad. It's not, it's hoping your children don't starve to death type bad. And I think that we, for so long, haven't lived in those systems where people are starving to death and stuff like that, that we don't see that as a realistic possibility, even though it absolutely is.
I worry. I don't like this.
Anyway, love you to death, Simone. This was a wonderful video. Very informative, I hope.
Please vote.
Yeah. Vote or die, motherfucker, motherfucker, vote or die. You better vote or I'll stick a knife in your eye.
Thank you, Malcolm. That was beautiful.
It's a great song.
It is. No, they get
up.
it. They're so great.
Why should I vote if it's between a douche and a turd, you know?
Vote or die, motherfucker, motherfucker, vote or die. Rock the vote or else I'm gonna stick a knife through your eye. Democracy is founded on one simple rule. Get out there and vote or I will motherfucking kill you. I like it when you vote, bitch. Shake them titties when you vote, bitch. Vote or die, motherfucker, motherfucker, vote or die. You can't run from a 38, go ahead and try. Let your opinion be heard, you gotta make a choice.
Stone and Parker for president. I would be
I
so
really
there.
wish they would run.
Right? They would be...
They'd win in such a landslide, I think.
Yeah, but we don't deserve them. You know, Curtis Yarvin made joke that, you know, we don't deserve Trump. I genuinely feel like we don't deserve Stone and Parker. They are too good for us. I love the American people, but we have a lot of work to do before we deserve them. I love you.
I love you too.
Oh God, that has me so depressed. I'll end this recording.
We are getting very closer.
Closer to what?
Closer to the bad deer.
To the bad deer?
Yeah.
What are we going to do with the bad deer?
We gotta kill the bad deer.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
With your Nerf gun?